I've been working on my next analysis video, but I hope to be posting this Sunday, but today I want to start a new series to fill the gap. With all the focus on the Overwatch League since its return with Stage 3, some of you may have missed the information surrounding the Overwatch World Cup for 2019. The past month has seen each competing country select their committees after voting on their general managers, coaches and community leads. But it's now time to look ahead to each nation's player selection. It may come as a surprise to many of you, but this process has already started and only runs from the 13th of June, so about a week ago, to the 14th of July, at which point each nation must submit their potential 12-man roster, and subsequently will only see a maximum of 7 players travel to BlizzCon if the qualification is successful. However, unlike in years past, this year sees the introduction of a minimum age restriction, meaning that players must be over 18 to compete, which makes it even more unlikely for young contenders level talent to make it into their sides over our players, but that's another debate on its own. So by popular demand, I want to go through each team that's likely to qualify or has already been given a bye, and discuss who I think will be in their final 7-man roster after evaluating each position group. Today therefore, I'm going to be focusing in on Team USA, which has easily been my most requested by my viewers, as they look to bounce back after their miserable 2018 performance that saw them beat down by the plucky Brits in the quarterfinals. Team USA is one of the 5 teams with a bye to BlizzCon, and as for their committee, Aero has once again been picked for the head coach position, with Borlin/Annalyn taking on the GM role, as Fresh, aka Freshnuts, is the community lead. And with Aero returning, it's likely he'll stick to Overwatch League talent he knows, potentially even preferring some of the players he coached last year. But let's start at one of the easiest, but also hardest areas to determine in my opinion, which is at the support position. The main support role I think in fact sees the only guaranteed lock at this stage, as unless he decides not to compete, I can't see anyone beating up Moth to the starting position. We've already heard that potential tryout talent like Elk have already pulled out in recognition that Moth's play has been outstanding and deserving of a spot here. Personally, I'd have to agree, it's been one of the best main supports so far this season, and has been a real driving force behind the Shock's success, with some really clutch and important boops throughout. The flex support position, in contrast, has arguably the most even and difficult choice to make out of every role from the team. Whilst I think that personally the choice is only between 2 players, I have to recognise that with Aero in charge, once again, there is probably a third candidate as well, so I think the potential 3 choices, realistically, are Sleepy, Dogman and Raucous. Raucous is clearly the odd one out, and I'm sure myself, as well as many of you guys, wouldn't actually have him in the selection at all. But given he was on the USA's 2018 World Cup team, and the fact that I think Aero does quite like his play, I could see him at least getting a tryout. I think his Ana lately has actually been really decent, and you could make an argument that if the meta is likely to change to see a bit more Ana, he has more of a likely chance of making the side. But given how important Zen has been to almost every meta for the past 2 years, and the fact that it still doesn't look like Goats is going to be killed, I just can't validate having him in the side over the 2 other players I'm going to talk about now. I think it really is between Dogman and Sleepy, and to be honest, they're really evenly matched, although it just depends on what style you prefer. Dogman is far more aggressive and much more of a fragger. I think what else he brings aside from that is more of a personality and a positive energy, sort of taking on a more leadership role, which I don't really see from Sleepy, who's much more passive and not really ever shown himself to be a leader, from what I've seen. I might be wrong on that. But what he does provide is more reliability than Dogman, in that he won't be caught out going over aggressive. And the fact he has previous synergy with a lot of Shock players we're going to see here, obviously, because with the Shock playing so well, we're going to see a lot of American Shock players make the side. I just think, personally, I'd edge towards Sleepy myself. But I think it is a choice of stylistic preference, and whether you want to have uber aggressive flex support or a more passive option. Moving on to the tank position, and I think it's best that we start at the main tank role, but recently saw plenty of debate, as realistically, it's only really between Super or Muma. This conversation gained some spotlight after Jane threw shade at Super after Houston upset the Shock, but I think most people are in general agreement on the choice. Whilst Muma has been one of the few bright spots of the Outlaws this season, and has actually played really well throughout on a multitude of heroes, I just think that compared to Super, he just hasn't really stood out as much and not made as many headlines. Of course he does have 2018 experience, and I do think his Orisa play and Hammond play are definitely better than Super. But overall, I just can't see Super not being picked. With his aggressive style, attitude and confidence, his performance of the Shock so far this season has been extraordinary, going head to head with the likes of Bumper and the very best that the main tank position has to offer in the league. So unless Aero reckons there's going to be a major shift in the meta, whether that be to bunker or to more triple DPS comps, I just think that Super's going to be the better option that most people are going to prefer, rather than Muma. Unless you want to go with a more passive playstyle on the whole, which I think Muma is more suited to as a whole compared to Super. As to the flex tank position, I think the obvious choice would be Space, which has been helped by his recent great run of form, which has come in line with the Valiant's resurgence, which dispels some of his earlier, weaker performances this season. My only issue is his flexibility. Other divas now have an ability to show off. I mean, if we look at someone like Fury, he's shown he can now play Sombra, as can a number of other divas at that position. And overall, I think, whilst you can have him in there for sure, and he covers the diva position especially, I think you therefore have to make up for that by bringing a DPS later on, who has a bit more flexibility to their game, that can fill some of those holes, picking up space, brings to the side somewhat. That said, I don't think there's much competition either. I mean, Gods or McCravey is two of the divas I can think of, but I think they're too new to the league, and they haven't really shown enough consistent quality to really show that they deserve a spot in the starting lineup. I'm pretty confident that most teams will prioritise picking up 3 players in the DPS position, unlike the 2 in the other 2, where arguably the US has the strongest depth available to them, with talents such as Sinatra, Dante, Hydration, Corey, and Blase. I don't really see how Sinatra misses out, as he covers your missing Zarya position if Goats is still meta, and he can flex onto other DPS heroes if need be. The question is, who else do you want? Arguably Widow is one of the worst and weakest heroes covered by all of these players in the US outfit, with the best player on her, probably in my opinion, being Corey. Perhaps Baby Babe, but I would say Corey. But it depends if you prefer that specialisation with the flexibility of the other players like Dante or Hydration, who you could have on Sombra or Brig/Projectile. Blase was having a great hero pool I don't think finds a way into this side, unless you want a Doomfist specialist, but even then you could argue that Sinatra covers this perfectly fine as well. So even though a lot of people I know quite like Blase, and in the future he definitely could be someone of an option, I don't think right now is this year, especially with the poor performances of Boston of late. For myself, I'd probably have to pick Sinatra, Dante and Hydration in the end. As I said with Sinatra, you can use him as your Zarya, you can then play Hydration on Brig, Dante on Sombra, depending on if you want to play Sombra Goats or regular Goats. And I think that by picking Dante and Hydration, you also cover the major areas that are lacking in the side. Hydration can cover your Projectile if you want to run Pharah or others. And Dante can play the Sombra and Tracer really handily. And although, yes, you might be lacking in a Widow player, currently there's just nothing to suggest that if the meta does change, it's going to change towards needing a Widow specialist. And personally, I would rather risk not having that Widow specialist in the side than filling your 7th spot with a Widow specialist, with the assumption that Widow is going to become super meta come BlizzCon in November. So, just as a summary, my starting 7, or the squad of 7 that I'd be sending to BlizzCon, if I was in charge of Team USA, would be Super on main tank, Space on flex tank, Moth on main support, Sleepy on flex support, followed by the trio of DCS players, Dante, Sinatra, and Hydration, as I think it gives you the best GOATS roster you can currently make with the current crop of USA players, but also gives you the most flexibility in terms of DPS options, and as well as, you know, just running different metas. I think it gives you the most flexibility. However, of course, if Aero thinks it is going to be a much more passive or bunker defensive meta moving forward, it wouldn't surprise me if you did see players like Muma perhaps get the nod, although personally I think Super has more than deserved his place on the side this year. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching this video on who I think will make Team USA roster for the 2019 Overwatch World Cup. I'll probably look to do South Korea next, but let me know who you'd like to see next down in the comments below. Otherwise, if you enjoyed, please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for this continuing competitive Overwatch content and coverage, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.